Welcome to the We Can Fix Climate Change podcast, where we bring the stories featured in our weekly Substack newsletter to life. In today's episode, we'll cover calls for a Green New Deal for schools, climate doomerism, COP28 leaders calling for a fossil fuel phase-out, France's new ecological plan, European insurance giants underwriting U.S. coal mines, why President Biden keeps approving more offshore drilling, a Yale study showing that EVs have lower emissions in all U.S. states, and a recent study confirming the impact of the weakening Gulf Stream on climate predictability and adaptation. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay informed with our latest episodes.
In response to escalating climate concerns, it is crucial to recognize the power individuals hold to make a significant impact. Demonstrating this initiative, high school students across the United States have initiated the Green New Deal for Schools campaign. The central objective of this campaign is to garner support for the passage of federal legislation that would help schools to better equip themselves for the future consequences of climate change and incorporate climate education into their curriculum. Another organization actively promoting environmental consciousness is Plum Village. With a focus on mindfulness and sustainable living, Plum Village offers online courses aimed at fostering ecological awareness. By emphasizing the importance of mindfulness and sustainable practices, this institution strives to encourage individuals to lead more environmentally friendly lives.
Alongside these initiatives, USA Today asserts the importance of avoiding climate doomerism. The publication highlights the progress that has already been achieved, largely due to the efforts of climate activists. Both climate denial and climate doomerism share the unfortunate result of promoting inaction, something the world cannot afford. It is essential to acknowledge the strides made in combating climate change while maintaining a strong sense of urgency to address it further.
As COP28 draws nearer, global leaders are advocating for a definitive agreement on a fossil fuel phase-out during the conference. The idea of a phase-out gained significant momentum and attention during UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres' Climate Ambition Summit, an event that served as a precursor to COP28. Highlighting the issue of petrostates, former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown has proposed a compelling notion that necessitates these countries to allocate a portion of the substantial profits generated by their nationally owned oil companies towards supporting less affluent nations. It is worth noting that state oil companies amassed a staggering $4 trillion in profits in 2022. Even a mere 3% of this colossal figure, equating to $25 billion, could provide substantial aid to countries in the global south. Such assistance would prove instrumental in alleviating poverty, reducing emissions, and mitigating the adverse impacts of climate change. Along a similar line of thinking, the Union of Concerned Scientists asserts that nations must legally acknowledge the right to a stable climate as a fundamental human entitlement, essential for our well-being, safety, and the prosperity of future generations. This recognition aligns with the ongoing efforts to address the urgent challenges posed by climate change comprehensively.
Emmanuel Macron has unveiled an ambitious plan aimed at significantly reducing France's greenhouse gas emissions. The goal is to achieve a 55% reduction from 1990 levels by the year 2030. The cornerstone of this plan is the phasing out of coal for electricity generation, with a target set for its complete elimination by 2027. Additionally, there will be efforts to decrease the country's reliance on fossil fuels for energy production, aiming to reduce the current dependency of 60% to 40% by 2030. In a contrasting move, LEGO recently encountered setbacks in their plan to transition away from oil-based plastic. After realizing that the manufacturing process of the alternative plastic they had intended to use would result in higher carbon emissions compared to the currently used plastic, the company had to abandon the proposed switch. In the absence of a viable alternative, LEGO has turned to recycling unused bricks to reduce their plastic consumption.
While sustainability and climate change commitments have gained prominence globally, certain insurance giants, including AIG, Lloyd's of London, Zurich, and Swiss Re, have been providing underwriting services to US coal mines. The mines insured by these companies contribute to 31% of US coal production. This contradiction arises despite the insurer's individual commitments to greenhouse gas reduction. Lloyd's of London, for instance, has specifically pledged to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030.
According to a recent New York Times article titled, "Biden Said He Would Stop Drilling. Then Reality Hit. Climate protesters in Midtown Manhattan expressed their frustration towards President Biden for not ceasing oil and gas drilling on public lands and in federal waters, despite his efforts to combat climate change. However, as reported by CNN in an article entitled, "Biden Administration Approves More Offshore Drilling in Bid to Expand Wind Energy," the Biden administration has recently granted approval for additional offshore drilling as part of its plan to expand wind energy. This decision was made in accordance with the Inflation Reduction Act, which mandates the Interior Department to propose a specific number of oil and gas leases in federal waters in order to pursue clean offshore wind energy projects. The Interior Department stated that 3 leases were the minimum requirement to proceed with offshore wind lease sales around the nation, as dictated by the law. The inclusion of fossil fuel drilling as a condition for clean wind energy development was a demand made by Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak recently announced a change in the country's internal combustion engine vehicle ban, pushing it from 2030 to 2035. While this decision has been met with annoyance by several automakers such as Ford, their primary concerns lie with the lack of consistency and ambition demonstrated by the government. The transition to electric vehicles necessitates significant changes in infrastructure and incentives, which cannot occur rapidly without the assistance or insistence of the UK government. In the United States, Yale Climate Connections has conducted research on the CO2 emissions reductions achieved by EVs in different states, and the results are encouraging. EVs consistently exhibit lower emissions than gas-powered cars across all US states, including those heavily reliant on coal for electricity, like West Virginia. The emissions reductions range from 34% in West Virginia to an impressive 94% in Vermont, with Washington state ranking second at 90%. Nevertheless, it is important to consider some persistent issues that EVs fail to address adequately. One such concern is tire pollution caused by these often heavier vehicles, which is significantly greater compared to equivalent internal combustion engine cars. The high mass and torque exerted by electric vehicles result in approximately 25% more tire wear, leading to the release of tiny rubber particulates that contaminate the environment. While this problem pales in comparison to the direct tailpipe emissions of gas vehicles, it remains an issue without a feasible solution in sight.
A recent study published in EcoWatch has once again emphasized the weakening of the Gulf Stream, reaching a certainty level of over 99%. The significance of the Gulf Stream lies in its role as a regulator of Europe's temperature and the eastern coast of North America, in addition to its global impact on weather patterns and climate conditions. The intensifying weakness of the Gulf Stream is expected to have profound consequences, particularly in terms of altering large-scale weather systems, rendering their prediction and adaptation considerably challenging. The implications of such changes are extensive and demand careful attention from the scientific community and society at large. Efforts to comprehend the intricacies of this phenomenon are ongoing, with researchers dedicating their expertise to unraveling the complexities behind the Gulf Stream's diminishing strength. Understanding the mechanisms that drive this weakening is crucial for accurately predicting how it will reshape weather patterns around the world and identifying effective measures for adaptation.
In today's episode, we discussed high school students campaigning for the Green New Deal for schools, COP28 leaders calling for a fossil fuel phase-out, France's ambitious greenhouse gas reduction plan, President Biden's approval of more offshore drilling for wind energy expansion, the delay in the UK ice ban, and the impact of the weakening Gulf Stream on climate predictability and adaptation. Thank you for tuning in to the We Can Fix Climate Change podcast. As always, don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your friends, and visit all our social media channels. And consider checking out our newsletter with more stories and links at wecanfixclimatechange.substack.com. Links are, as always, in the description box. See you next week.